Bruges, the opening again as they play host for the 93rd edition,
and all of the Belgian fans will be out, hopefully, to support a Belgian winner.
Yes, well, we'd like to support, and we don't mind showing our bias, an American.
En daar reed ik.
Is dat? Ja.
Hey, Filippo!
Het is met zijn naam, hè?
Costa.
Nu komt het alleen. Dat is dingen.
And Paris-Roubaix, and his team management and all of his teammates have told me, Phil, that he has got the best form of his
names. Pozzato, last year's winner, Stijn Devolder, Leif Haussler, 3-time second, never a winner. Haussler, he's on good form this year, might be a big surprise today.
Ik vind het heel jammer, want ik vind het ten eerste al een heel mooie outfit. En ten tweede moeten we terug van omkleren zo niet doen.
Wie heeft jouw outfit ontworpen, Tom?
Dat weet ik eigenlijk.
Is het ook de bedoeling om daar straks mee op het podium te pronken na afloop?
Als het eventueel zou lukken, dan denk ik wel dat we die gaan aandoen, ja.
Heb je al besloten?
Ik heb er eens over nagedacht.
Ik weet dat Wilfried Peters dat gisteren voorgelegd heeft aan de jury en toen was het niet. Had je dan een beetje het gevoel van, nu kom ik in een dipje te zitten?
Nee, die kledij die verandert.
The mayor of Bruges is set. He pulls the trigger, and at 9:45 local time this morning, they've headed out onto the route. And very shortly we will catch up with live pictures.
Ja, het is ook al de 10e keer, hè. De tijd gaat snel. Het is al de 10e keer dat we vanuit Brugge vertrekken. Dat mag nooit meer veranderen?
Maar ik denk, dit is boeketje Vlaanderen. Hè. Dit moet je gewoon koesteren naar de buiten, naar Europa toe. Dus waarom zouden we dit niet gebruiken als we dat hebben?
Kijk eens naar Nuis. Helemaal achteraan het peloton. Dat is een stek altijd in het begin van een koers. En dan dat verzetje zo klein mogelijk. Hè?
Ja, dat is wel belangrijk. 2 mannen daar achteraan. Ik heb daar vrijdagavond nog een gesprek over gehad met Peter van Petegem. Die ook vaak dat systeem van wedstrijden of dat systeem van koersen hanteerde. Maar dan telkens wel opnieuw met 2, 3 mannen in zijn buurt. Voor als er iets gebeurt, dan toch onmiddellijk in steun te komen. Er helemaal achteraan is het wel makkelijk koersen. Hè. Je hoeft niet de hele dag in de remmen, je hoeft niet de hele dag te kijken en te doen. Als je daar een paar man in steun...
Being pulled in by the race organizer of the Tour of Flanders, Wim van Herreweg, who's the race director. And immediately, and not surprisingly, Paul, plenty of attacking riding, heading up towards west.
Ja, zender. Applaudisseert er mama.
Of the Molenberg, 130 kilometers to go, and there's a small break off the front end of the main field. Serge Turgot, Kuczynski, Alexander Kuczynski, Philippe Meerhagen is in there as well, and they're facing up here, Phil, to the right-hand turn, which is the start, the first climb of the day, the Molenberg.
So the Tour of Flanders now to rejoin the action. This little breakaway has only just got away. In fact, it hasn't got a big lead. There is the statistics on the Molenberg. It's a 7% climb. Steepest part is 14.2%. The riders hitting these hills now at very high speed, and it's Turgot who's leading them over the top.
Not much of an advantage though, because there is the front end of the main field. In fact, we've had a very rapid start to the race here, Phil, because we weren't actually expecting to get to the Molenberg till about 1 o'clock. And so we're 10 minutes up on schedule. Obviously a very fast first 100 kilometers of this race.
Well, Paul, you know all about riding these cobblestones. I think the answer is try and stay in the middle and ride as hard as you can, right?
You also notice the riders, the way they hold the handlebars. You shouldn't grip the handlebars too tight, and the ideal situation is just to rest the hands in the middle of the handlebars and allow the front end of the bike to try and find the smoothest ride over those cobbles.
Well, Wim de Vogt is in that breakaway as well, but the four riders, there's been a lot of tentative escapes today, but for some reason the peloton, no matter how little the name of the rider who's attacked, they've chased everything down. And as you can see, they're riding just 19 seconds behind those 4 riders. Turgot, Kuzinski, Meerhager and De Vocht are the 4 leaders.
Française de Jure at the front. Over on the right-hand side, that's Heinrich Haussler, and he obviously is showing himself that he can ride at the front end of the bike race in these cobblestone sections. A lot of riders tipping him for a good ride here in the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
Here, because there's still a long way to go, and of course, a lot of opportunity to attack ahead.
It's a good time to attack. This is a long stretch of cobbles here, Phil. This is Kerkgate, and it's 3 kilometers long, a very long section of cobblestones. But after it, the riders have a very nasty climb. The second climb of the day, the Wolvenberg. As you can see, not too much wind here in the Flanders today, and the sun is finally starting to burn off that early morning fog. Not, I think, what a lot of the Flemish riders would regard as being the ideal weather conditions. They would have really preferred a lot of wind and a lot of rain.
Well, as you can see, it really is looking like a very pleasant spring day in Belgium now. We were dense fog when we drove to the start this morning at around 7 o'clock, and the riders too having to be up early to eat before the start, which is a quarter to 10. And so all good eating times for the riders when they're facing up to a long time in the saddle. Here's the breakaway, just a reminder: Sebastian Turgot, Alexander Kuzinski, Philippe Meerhager and Wim de Vocht are the 4 riders who've got the biggest lead of the day so far. Looking at some of these faces, though, they're under pressure, these boys, and I don't know how long they're all going to last as a foursome.
Kuzinski looking very strong there, Phil, in the lime green Liquigas jersey. I have to say he's enjoying these cobbles. You can see how difficult it is to ride the cobbles, because already Philippe Meerhager is in difficulty. He's having a hard time actually staying in contact with the tempo that is being put in there by Kuzinski.
Yes, a bit surprised about that, because I thought he'd be more at home on the mountain bike terrain and the flatter roads, but a lot of successful mountain bikers have made the transfer to being good road cyclists. But these 2 are moving clear now, and it's Kuzinski who is doing all of the driving. Just up behind him there too is Wim de Vocht, showing us the new colours of the Vacances Soleil. Also in the field, their leader today is the Australian rider Baden Cook, still back in the peloton, but they've got a split here at 123 kilometres left to ride. Remember, it's a 261 kilometre race today, but they're flying at the moment.
Well, I think the main field, Phil, have turned it off a fraction, because they all realise that, as everybody states every year, the most important point, I think, for the start of the activities and the race in the Ronde van Vlaanderen is the old Kwaremont. That comes up at 180 kilometres into the race, and it's around about 15 kilometres from here.
Taking the shortcut on the sidewalk there, the rider from Française des Jeux. You've really got to keep your wits about you racing in Belgium, because there's no guarantee there won't be traffic furniture in the way. Normally it is against the law to ride on the highway on a bicycle in Belgium if there is a cycle path supplied. And so when you're training over here, that's where you have to ride. But on this sort of road, there are no cycle paths.
I actually gave you a bit of duff information there, because I did my maths wrong for a change. Normally get it right. It's actually 40 kilometres from here to the start of the old Kwaremont. That's why I think the main field is taking it a little bit easier, because they will start to wind up around about 15 kilometres before the start of that climb.
Well, these 2 have really buried themselves now, because that time gap has really shot up. Look, it's up to 1:44 now in just a few kilometres. The other 2 haven't given up hope here, because that's Turgot in the light blue jersey from Bouygues Telecom, and trying to keep up with him is Meerhager.
Just closing off the tempo at the front end of the main field. It'll be interesting to see how Fabien Cancellara rides a little bit later on. Still struggling, Phil, to get over that nasty illness that struck him out of the Amgen Tour of California at the start of the season. Talking to some of our Swiss colleagues, they said he was having a hard time actually finding himself getting back into form.
Well, he comes from Bern in Switzerland, and I should imagine that winter's still with them in that country, so it'll be hard to shake off at this time of the year. It can take a few weeks to get better, especially at this level of cycling, so I think he'd do better just to just keep his training miles in and wait for things to go right for him. Interestingly, it's Française des Jeux here, the French squad, who are doing a lot of the work here. They've got on form Sebastian Chavanel if it came to a sprint, which I very much doubt today. Always the surprise with Frédéric Guédon, and you never know what the Tasmanian rider Sulzberger will do.
No, definitely, and let's not forget that Anthony Geslin just recently won himself a semi-classic here in Belgium, the Brabantse Pijl, or the Fresh Brabançon, and I think that will have given them an awful lot of confidence to come up here and battle on the Flemish roads.
The French, by the way, have only...
Nee, een paar.
2 3. Maar dat zijn nog ze, hè? Peloton erachter volgens mij. Weet dat?
Ja, het zijn er achter nog, ja.
Geen peloton. En ik die hadden erbij. Hier.
Ja,
Ja, ik die hadden
een van Kanselee. Hey, kom aan, hè. 122.
20 vocht en...
Hier wou hij hier.
En Mori. Touché zeker.
Hey, kom aan, hè.
Hey.
leaders. It's hurting at the back of that peloton now, and the pressure will stay on all of the way. Alexander Kuzinski setting the pace. Well, he's not just at the moment. He's slipped in behind Wim de Vogt, who is right up there. Paul, you were saying that a lot of people fancy Wim de Vogt today. Why is that?
Well, a lot of people have said that he's got pretty good form coming on to this season. This is not the way to win the Tour of Flanders, though, because this is very much more like a publicity breakaway for the riders we're concerned about here.
Kings of their own roads. Surprisingly enough, the Belgians are also the kings of Paris-Roubaix, which is up in a week's time, because I reckon it's that the roads are so close to the same construction of roads here in the Flanders area.
Got to be very motivated to ride races like this. The achteraan van de peloton, the back end of the main field, and you can already see these cobbles are starting to make one or two riders suffer. These two riders from AG2R, you see, they think the rider just in front there who wears number 77, you can see the difficulty that he's got there, Phil, is actually riding fluidly on the cobblestones. You have to be able to ride over the cobbles with strength, but also a combination of suppleness.
Minute 47, first time we've seen a slight reversal there to a minute 46, the gap to the fourth.
Daar peloton is daar.
A lot of riders have said that he's riding in good form, and that was shown very early on at the back here. There's a problem for Cervelo test team.
Well, it's trying to straighten his handlebars out there. It looks to me as though it's not Haussler, it's Heinrich Haussler, that. You can always tell by his long hair, which he has two-tone at the moment, as he moves back on. He was saying at the start how he said he'd never felt so nervous.
Was Kuczynski bij dit staan.
Allemaal samen, hè?
Hier, Bosberg, een boom.
As we're looking here at riders who are getting themselves hopefully back to the peloton. That's Manuel Quinziato, who is in this group here, and also Pablo Urtasun, which is one of the Euskaltel-Euskadi riders in the orange jersey there. But I think the pressure hurt a few boys then. That was the real sting in the tail of the tour.
Haussler daar. Haussler. We zien Haussler helemaal van achter.
Fuji.
Hey, kom maar. 94.
The Tour of Flanders, there's a crash, the splits happen again, and you're kept under pressure. 120 kilometers to go here now as we continue with these two leaders onto the Wolvenberg. 7.9% with a maximum gradient of 17.3. That's a very steep kick in the middle of this climb.
And if you think that the sport of professional cycling is not popular anymore, just have a look at that on the left and right hand side of the road. This really is a massive day of sport for the Belgians. We've seen the Formula One in Malaysia in the early part of this morning, but I think everybody is now out at the side of the road, if they can get to the side of the road for the Ronde van Vlaanderen, because this is their Indy 500, their Super Bowl, their Olympic Games, their World Championships. This is a massive day for the Flemish people.
Well, I think half of Belgium come onto the roadside here right now, as they have the ability to nip across the course as soon as the race has gone through and watch it go through elsewhere. These two riders putting on the pressure though. Wim de Vocht, the Vacansoleil, the new team in second place. The return of Heinrich Haussler, very well done that. It's taken a bit of doing, and the rider who's come back with him there is Maciek Bodnar from the Liquigas team.
Just having a quick look at the back there, I think that speed going into that corner, and the only thing he could do was go over the back end of somebody's wheel.
Well, chance to look at the front of the peloton here now. This high speed tempo climbing as they keep the rhythm on. 119 kilometers to go. We're on the top of the Wolvenberg here.
On the left-hand side there, you might just have noticed a man who I've been expecting to retire for the last few years. That was Servaes Knaven, now riding for Team Milram. I think this is a quick glimpse there, Phil, as why you have to ride at the front, because
look at that.
The road gets blocked.
A standstill. Somebody's probably slipped his gears or maybe fallen. Now there's no choice but to just lock up and wait. I can see Stephen Cummins of Great Britain there in the Barlow World colours, which is the red jersey. They're just propping himself up. A couple of riders here from the Vacansoleil team. Art Vierhouten is here. I can't see who the other rider is, but it's certainly not Baden Cook, the leader of the team. So he's missed on that one, which is probably just as well. The Bouygues Telecom is William Bonnet.
Is Ponteweg, and in fact this section of cobblestones has been relaid in the last 2 years because it used to be an absolutely nasty section of cobblestones. It's renowned for, of course, that windmill that you can see there, and it really is, I have to say, a real typical Flemish viewpoint.
Will you be forgiven? I think we just crossed into Holland here, and there's nobody on the sails either. I'm surprised as the riders go under. Well, they're very hard wearing, let's face it. A bit unkind on the bicycle wheels, but that makes the very nature of this country for cycling. This is the place that many cyclists from all over the world come to try and earn their first professional contract. These boys are at the top of their profession rather, as the crowd watch there. Very obedient, very nice, cheering the peloton through. 2/3 for himself. The strong men now racing towards the turn.
Well, Kuczynski and Wim de Vocht, but you can see the speed in the main field has had a move on the time, because we're now down to 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and only just
that they've now swept up the two chasers, so there's only two leaders and the peloton at 2:10. Last year's winner stripping off for action, Stijn Devolder.
As you can see, he's wearing the bands on his jersey there as a former Belgian national champion. In fact, he won the Ronde van Vlaanderen in the jersey of the Belgian national champion, something that I think was very special to him.
Oh, I can't think of anything better. If you're the champion of your country and you win the biggest bike race wearing the colours of your country, it was a special moment for sure.
Most certainly. His teammate Tom Bonen will be looking to try and win this race for a third time. I think Bonen, Phil, has got something very special in store for us here this afternoon, because he's changed his approach to racing. He doesn't race after every...
With a small team in his home country, Maxbo Bianchi, but I think Team High Road made a great catch there. Well, this is the catch, although our timekeeper said it had come before. This is it. These are live pictures, so there's the peloton, not exactly rushing at them at the moment.
Now, they've got the race pretty much the way they want it, I think, in the main field. They've got a small group of two riders off the front, hovering at around the 2-minute mark, but once this peloton, Phil, starts to speed up at the approach of the old Kwaremont, you'll see that gap come down quite possibly by at least a minute in 10 kilometres.
2:10. 94 kilometers to go. It's about 57 miles to race to the finish. So It's up to these boys now. The return of last year's winner, proudly wearing number 1, Stijn Devolder. He's a very confident man to ride this far down the peloton as we approach the old Kwaremont, I must say.
Going to be some interesting tactics, I think, later on for Quick-Step, because as far as I can make to do as well, this is the steepest part of the older Kwaremont, but I'd have to say not necessarily the hardest part, because I've always found that the hardest part of this climb is straight over the top. These are the 2 leaders here at the moment, part of the early morning breakaway, and they've got themselves an advantage of a minute at the moment, Phil, but that's not very much considering the speed of the bunch behind.
Well, Kuzinski is the rider on the front. Now, this is the chaos of the back. They've made the turn, and 1 or 2 have taken a dip into the ditch on the left-hand side. As the riders here, we can see that again now, because we were with the leaders when it happened. There they go, forced literally off the road and into the ditch, and everybody has to wait. This is why the strong men race at the front and hold position, because they know this is going to happen at the back. Look at this, it's all calm and ecstasy at the front.
It's all pleasurable at the front end of the main field, but it was a battle to get there. Risks had to be taken to get into the first 10 or 15 places. And yes, Phil, I have to say, Cervelo test team, what a great ride to get first 5 positions. But Team Columbia are not too far away either.
Team Columbia equally have ridden well today. They were the year's team last year, and the situation now is that they are looking good again for this big season here as well. Changed their team racing colours to yellow and white, and just watching here now, this doesn't look very steep from our camera, but it is, believe me, it is a hard climb. They only allow so many spectators down here because they get too many, they can't find the road as they make their way up into the steeper section. The gap, a minute 4. I don't know who is pushing now.
It would have to be Cholak, I would think, because he's one of the team leaders for Milram. It's a race, and I've said this so many times, Phil, where you have to make sacrifices for your team on a day like this, because this is one of the strategic points of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. You can see the Lion of Flanders flags there. This is their World Cup. This is their World Championships. This is one of the biggest days of sport in Belgium.
Little select group forming at the front, or is it the whole peloton? Because these boys at the front know that the race can be lost here, but it won't be won here. And so now they've...
Nu is dat Cancellara op de eerste rij.
Met een prijs in Sint.
Johan Corneel. Ja, is er niet over. Was dat Becker?
Usually in the Tour of Flanders, Phil, there is an acceleration on this part of the course, because this, with this flat part of the cobblestone, tilting up just slightly to the top of the climb is where the race normally splits up, and then we have a setup for the dash down to the Koppenberg.
Well, Cervello is keeping a tempo here that will stop anybody coming up and join them right now. I'm amazed to see so many riders still sitting there in the group, but they've got themselves a very fast tempo. The crowd know exactly what they're looking at here in Belgium. They are as expert as any expert in the world of cycling. And as soon as they're all over the top, they'll be heading for those cars and heading across the countryside to the next climb.
This is a mean tempo being dished out here by Cervello test team. This is the top part of the old Kwaremont. They'll have a bit of respite. They've only got about 6 kilometers of smooth road before they start the Koppenberg, and that is a beast of a climb. And a lot of riders, Phil, I reckon, will see themselves walking on the Koppenberg, although fortunately today it's dry.
Yes, once your wheels start spinning, you're in big trouble. This is Sapper here, who's in trouble for Lamprey, but he's doing well. He's hanging on in there. As the crowd are terrific today. They're standing right back off the route. They're giving the riders every help they can by keeping the race clear on a reasonably wide stretch of road. Astana looking as though they've got Berry Kupchov in trouble here. He's losing ground now. New signing for Astana, getting his first bite of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, trying to pick the smooth on the inside. There's the end of the cobblestones. Now it's a quick sprint and rejoin before we get to more climbs.
Well, let's rejoin and hope you can get yourself over the next climb of the day there. The Taaienberg is going to be the next climb. That comes in around about 4 kilometers. Then it's straight down the valley to go and find the Koppenberg, which is a nasty brute of a climb. 50 miles of racing left to go, 80 kilometers, and kind of forgetting there are still 2 survivors of the early morning breakaway still off the front end of the main field, but I think this is really where the action is.
Flag of Flanders, the black line of Flanders there. You see plenty of those flags today that were distributed to the crowd this morning. Not quite as big as that one, I must say. And the Belgian beer flowing well here, the land of the beer and French fries. But they don't like you calling them French fries because this is
climb number 4. This is the 2 leaders. They're surviving with 41 seconds advantage. This is climb number 4 of the day, the Taaienberg, 360 meters. But the percentage of the gradient here, Phil, at its steepest point is 20%.
But look at the gap pull, down to 38 seconds. And as I say, they haven't really chased down these 2 leaders. They've been infighting, and the 2 leaders are coming back just by consequence of that. 77 kilometers to go. They'll also be aware now that they've split the peloton with their pacemaking. At this stage, they won't know if any of the big names, the likely favourites to win, have missed it, but they'll keep the pressure on because their team managers will have told them that the race is split.
Well, Cervello test team are on a mission here this afternoon because they realised there was a split. They want to keep that split from being brought back by the main field. Look at Tom Bonen over on the left-hand side, looking very calm and collected, just watching the men in black do their job at the front end of the main field. Hushoft right up at the front end of the main field. Hincapie not very far away either. Everybody waiting to see just exactly how this has developed. I have a feeling that the man in blue there, Bonen, Phil, is looking extremely strong.
He's making a huge effort here. He's won this race twice before, and he's aiming for a 3rd today, which would put him in an elite group of only 5 names, including himself, if he were to win today. Nobody has ever won this race on 4 occasions. It shows you how hard it really is. These are the 2 leaders over the top of the Taaienberg. But the fact that Bonen is here, Hushoft is here, Haussler is here, Hincapie is here, and I'm pretty sure I've seen Pozzato, so the favourites haven't slipped up.
No, they've been very attentive. Fletcher is in 2nd position. Bonen is enjoying that climb. He's riding with confidence, with strength, just looking over to check the faces on the other riders in the group with him. Now you can start to see there's a little bit of a first selection coming on this climb there. I think that was Maaskant going around the corner there for Garmin. Just having a look down to see what sort of damage, to see if anybody's missed out on this move here this afternoon. But it looks as if there's been a slight regrouping. Pozzato going around there in the blue. Still a lot of riders in quick step to be able to assist Tom Bonen later on in the day.
Just getting a look at all of the riders here. Garmin Slipstream have got at least 2 riders in the front half of the split at the moment. But we're not sure whether that split is still on or whether this is the next group. Here's life at the back of the group here. And losing ground is Angelo Furlan again. He was at the back earlier on, but this time I think he's in the spot of bother. Oh, maybe not.
Well, he's one of the big sprinters, and I think he's not enjoying the Ronde van Vlaanderen. The sprinters would rather sit in a big pack for a race of 200 kilometers and then leap out down towards the end of the day. Aurélien Clerc, one of the other sprinters, number 21 there. Switzerland, he's having a hard time too with these climbs, and he knows it's psychologically it's very difficult in a race like the Tour of Flanders, because once you've buried yourself on a climb like this, you know that in 4 or 5...
Pozzato is the Liquigas rider here in the lime green colours. He was in trouble earlier on, well, he's well recovered. And Daniel Lloyd, well, I did do him a disservice. I've never seen Daniel race on television before, but he's the Cervelo rider who's got up here, and hats off to him in his first Tour of Flanders.
I don't think Sylvain Chavanel in the blue jersey is going to put too much effort into a breakaway like this, because he's in a very difficult tactical situation. He doesn't want to put too much pressure onto the shoulders of Tom Bonen and ride away in a group like this. But if he can take advantage of the situation, well, thank you very much, he'll grab it.
Well, this is now the next stage of the Ronde van Vlaanderen tactic-wise. The 3 big teams have put big riders out front. It's up to the others to try and repair the damage. It looks as though the peloton is getting itself stitched up a little bit as these riders are chasing back. Remember, we're still heading down to the next climb of the day, which is after we've done our little trip around the Paterberg.
Well, they're making their way to the Koppenberg, and that's not very much more than around about 2 kilometers away from here, and that's not going to be regarded as dangerous.
Yes, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We'll see. They're saying it's Frédéric Guédon who's come up here now for Française des Jeux. There he is, just taking his helmet off, removing his hat and quickly putting it back on, because that's tantamount to disqualification if you remove your helmet. But he'll get away with that. There's one of the horses of Flanders here. Best view in the house, that.
Could be Helen of Troy.
Could be. In the breakaway.
In the breakaway. The main field has shut off a fraction there. That, I think, Phil, when you look at the...
Referee's calling for the team car of Postuma now with a new wheel. So how unlucky is that? You get across and then you have a flat tyre. Still no answer to those sort of problems. The peloton has shut down. This will be an interesting next challenge coming up now. The gap is 15 seconds here only, so we're going to see Lloyd, Chavanel, Quinziato, Haussler, etc. Bridge the gap to the leaders. Then we have a different race on our hands here. 6 riders now chasing. I don't think we joined the 2 leaders. No, they're just in front.
16 in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and I'm a bit surprised to see the main field turn off. This is a very tactical moment. Probably the most dangerous rider in this group of counter-attackers, I would have to say, is Leif Hoster. On 3 occasions he's been second in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and he's promised to keep going until he gets himself onto the top step of the podium. That's Hoster there in the red jersey of Team Silence Lotto.
Well, I'm interested to see just what Hoster's got planned here. He knows what it's like to finish second in this event. He's done it on 3 occasions, but he's never won it. He'd be the most popular man in Belgium if he turned it round today, Leif Hoster. And you know, he's always inspired by this event. 6 riders, shortly to be 8, as we swing up towards the Koppenberg.
Right-hand bend.
So we're now looking at the 2 leaders here as they begin the Koppenberg climb. They are still Alexander Kuzinski and Wim de Vogt, but they're only a handful of seconds ahead now of a group which has got away over the top of the Paterberg after the climb of the old Kwaremont. And there they are. There are 6 riders trying to get on terms. Among them is Daniel Lloyd of Cervelo, the British rider, Quinziato of Liquigas, Chavanel is in there, 3 times runner-up Leif Hoster. These are all part of that chase group. The peloton is only just behind them.
This is one of the scariest climbs in the Ronde van Vlaanderen. It's only 600 meters long, but its average gradient is 12%, but it peaks out at 22%. And it really, on the camera here, Phil, is very difficult to explain just exactly how steep this climb is. But if you look at the way these guys...
I think we know now with that shot.
That is a nice shot. It just explains how difficult this climb is. It is a beast of a climb, and you can see by the style of these riders.
Tremendous piece of riding, and there also number 14 is Leif Haussler, 3 times second. See if we can see George.
Fletcher going through there. This is a clever move by Filippo Pozzato, but it's also a pretty good tactical move by Team Quickstep, because if they can get across the gap here, and let's not forget it's only about 20 or 30 seconds, Quickstep could see themselves facing 3 men in the leading group. Fletcher is there in 4th position, just behind Stijn Devolder. A little bit further back, I can just see the yellow jersey of Team High Road and George Hincapie.
Well, the gap is he's coming to the picture.
It's a great climb that many part-time cyclists like to come out here and try, and somebody there is not too happy about the Koppenberg here this afternoon. And one of the riders,
it's Cancellara, isn't it? Yeah.
He has a problem with his bike.
Well, there's a picture for you. The world time trial, Olympic time trial champion carrying his bike up the Koppenberg.
Posti maar hier pas. Oh nee. Maar ik kan vanavond niet lopen.
That's a shame, because I think he was looking to find himself a return to the form. The photographers there also are not allowed to drive up this. In fact, there's a little road around the back that they have to come up on to get themselves photographs. Koppenberg.
And it goes back to the days when the race referees ran over Alan Piper, didn't they?
I think it was
Jesper Skibby from Denmark, that's right. He couldn't get out of the way, he couldn't climb any faster, and the race was coming up behind, so they pushed their way through and went over the wheels of his bike. So there we are, we're over the top of the Koppenberg now. We still have 8 leaders as we regroup here. This tour is going on to the finish.
Well, the 8 leaders looking over their shoulders, they're going to try and get themselves organised. Sylvain Chavanel looking for his team helper to take on board drinks, take on board extra food to make sure that he gets himself through the next 68 kilometres. Leif Haussler there in 2nd position must be thinking this is a bonus here this afternoon, because I haven't had to do hardly any effort to get myself into this position. We keep looking back down the road there to see if there's any sight of Pozzato and Tom Bonen coming across the gap.
Well, Leafy Gas now have got 2 riders up here because they join, but there is the peloton around the bend. It's hardly escaped this breakaway, but what it does tell us is there has been a new because we've cut back here to Cancellara, I think, have we? No new chain for him. Which is rather sad. He's about to head back to Bern in Switzerland. He'll probably stay around perhaps to ride the rest of this week's classics, who knows. Kuzinski now in this breakaway. There's the best way to go down when you don't have a chain on your bike, and that's freewheel Haussler. And this is good. There's the chain around his neck now. That might be a souvenir for his missus.
Trying to figure out where he can go, and I think one of the organisers here is saying you better go back up the climb. Well, he can't ride up it, so he's going to try and get himself down to the main road. And I think one of his team helpers at the side of the road there, Phil, has probably called to the team car to come and pick him up from the bottom of the Koppenberg.
You see the recession set in. He's collecting the chain. He's going to have it put back on. He can't afford to change.
Break, Phil, they're really not over-organised at the moment. Chavanel must be wondering what he is supposed to do in a breakaway like this, because the dangerous man, as you mentioned, is Leif Haussler. 3-time second. He will be looking to see this as a great opportunity to try and turn those 3 seconds into 1 win.
Well, he was second in 04, 06 and 07 at Leif Haussler. And he traded all 3 for 1 win in this great event. And look at this, Quick Step are taking up the chase, and Stijn Devolder setting the pace.
Well, Stijn Devolder
been sitting near the back waiting to see what happened.
I think just a false tempo. He knows that just around the corner they'll be starting this next climb of the day, and this is climb number 7, the Taaienberg. The safest place to start one of these steep climbs is right on the very front line. There's the statistics, Phil. 15.8% at its maximum. The average gradient, though, is only 7%.
And the crowds, some will be the same from the early climbs of the Molenberg. Some will have waited here just to watch it all happen. Haussler was number 14. And it is Chavanel, the teammate of Tom Bonen, who's knocking out the tempo on the front here, being followed by Quinziato. Then Daniel Lloyd of the UK. And he's really taken an early liking to this event, I have to say, riding on a real team for the first time in his career. And this is a huge push for Daniel Lloyd.
Suffering at the back now, another member of that early breakaway, Wim de Vocht, number 232, starting to slip backwards, as too is the rider from Lampre, Marco Bandiera. They're starting to understand now why this is such a special bike race. Chavanel looking over his shoulder to see what sort of damage has been done. He now has to be very attentive because he is... team policeman, and look at Bonen here, Phil. He is not letting anything go. He's going to give everything he can. He's trying to ride across a 1-minute gap here on the Taaienberg alone, followed by Pozzato.
And he uses these little climbs and his pure strength. He knows he's going to have to use just about everything. He's saving nothing here. Absolute strength. Again, you see the flashes of a Belgian champion on his shirt cuffs. But Pozzato's marking him today, ex-teammates. And we need to see George. It looks like George is just in our picture back there, so he's trying to hold on and keep them in sight. But Tom Bonen wants to break the elastic and then race across to that front group of 8. He tried it on the Koppenberg, and he's trying it again now on the Taaienberg.
He wants this race, Phil. He is dreaming of winning this bike race this afternoon. He's got a good ally at the moment in Filippo.
Daar de boom, ja. En Pozzato. Ja, met Pozzato. Pozzato. Allez, people, come on! Allez, Haussler! Dat was niet goed, zeg, Haussler. Hier, ras. Kluisbergen. De Weert, de Wereld. Van Avermaat hier.
Join a band of elite cyclists too. Today he bids for a third win here in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, as he also comes, and in fact that is Marcus Burkhardt at the back here. It's not George Hincapie who's got into the group, it's his teammate Burkhardt.
Well, he was one of the spare leaders of Team Columbia here this afternoon. He's going to sit on the back of this group. I don't think he'll offer too much assistance in trying to get off across the gap, because he'll be looking over his shoulder wondering where is big George Hincapie, because I think Hincapie is the man for today for Team Columbia.
Well, there is Bonen, and there's no doubt the other five are going to bridge, so it's 7 chases 8 at the moment. 1 or 2 big names have now slipped away from our radar, just for the moment at least. There's still plenty of hills to come. And not willing to work with this, he's going along for the ride to see how it develops.
Well, it appears that Tom Bonen really wants to get himself across the gap, but he's actually not getting any help from anybody. He's in a strong tactical position with his team at least, because at least they've got a man in the leading group by the name of Sylvain Chavanel, but that's not what he wants. He wants to win this bike race for himself. He has to be mean this afternoon. He has to not think about his teammates. He's got to bang on the table and say, I'm the boss.
Oh, there's more riders getting on. The return of quite a slice of the peloton here on that right-hander. 35 seconds the gap, but remember that is the 8 leaders as we go to Etikhove. 35 seconds, it's nothing.
Hey, kom aan, hè. Tanking. Oh joh. IJssel daar.
Somewhat illicit pit stops out on the road.
He'll be telling me they've got compassion next. Anyway, that ride is just going through there. Is Greg van Avermaet now, another man that's been under the critical hammer of the press here in Belgium. Well, he's got himself into a very select group now, and he has said all along his form is coming, and today is his big day. Perhaps he's the lead around this bend just now for Silence Lotto. Let's have a look up the road. It seems a long way, 30 seconds, 37 seconds, doesn't it?
It is a very long way, around about a half a kilometre at speeds like this. These riders moving away at 60 kilometres to go. They're facing up in about 1.5 kilometres to the 8th climb of the day, and that is the climb of the Eichenberg. A long climb at 1.1 kilometres, and a climb where I wonder if Tom Bonen will once again try and get himself across the gap, because the situation he's finding himself at the moment, Phil, is he hasn't got any friends in that group at all.
Now he's moved to the back, as you say. Now there are 8 riders in the on the red Wegstrijd, which is there.
Armsen hier, ja. Dingen wat niet goed.
Climbs to go, but Team Quickstep don't have the man in the front that they want.
We are 59 kilometres from the finish, 44 seconds the gap, 8 riders in the lead: Kuzinski, De Vogt, Haussler, Gaydon, Lloyd, Sebastian Chavanel, Quinziato and Marco Bandiera. And the man powering the chase behind, and that's why we've got Chavanel sitting on, I was going to say, is Tom Bonen, but there's been a change, because that's Heinrich Haussler on the left now, who's tempting others to join him.
Well, everybody sees the dangerous situation developing at the front end of this bike race, and Tom Bonen, I think, will be licking his wounds there, because he does not want to be in this situation. He's not happy with an 8-man breakaway, even though he has got a teammate in that leading group. But Haussler has said that he's got the form here this afternoon and he's looking for the gap. And this climb here of the Eichenberg is a very good climb.
Kom maar, Labo! Kom maar, jongens!
Mocht hem al wel.
Haussler, he's not a man under pressure, that's for sure. He's had 3 wins this year, Heinrich. He really has become quite a star. He's only 25 years of age, and hearing him, I was chatting with him this morning, he speaks English with a faultless English accent. Well, Australian really. He was brought up in the lovely town of Inverell in New South Wales, and I know they'll all be watching and cheering for him as an Australian, but he is in fact a...
Kom maar.
The reaction coming from Quick-Step, who do not want small groups of riders to sneak off the front end of the main field like this. The main field now starting to get themselves up to climb number 10 of the day, and that is the climb of the Leiberg. Not a very difficult climb. It's an average gradient of 4.2%, but at its steepest part, it's almost 14%.
Well, we're witnessing a very tactical race today. A lot of riders are using their teammates and strength because there seems to be a big equality this year. All the time, they're not over concerned by that breakaway. It's under control. It's out at 1 minute 13. They're not really reacting to the breakaway. Although minute 10 as we get on to the Berendries, 7% climb, maximum 12.3%. We are now looking at the 2 leaders here of the group of 7. They're the Liquigas boys. We've just started the climb of Berendries, and the gap is down to 1:08. 7 leaders versus a big peloton which is expanding all the time.
That main field behind at 1 minute and 8 seconds is expanding all of the time, and I have to say there are a lot of riders in that group from Team Quick-Step, a lot of riders from Colombia, and a lot of riders trying to see whether or not they're going to pull back this group. This is a good acceleration here. Leif Hoster in the red and black jersey of Team Silence Lotto, Phil, is definitely playing the waiting game. Yeah, I think he's a little bit confused by finding himself into this breakaway so far from the finish line of the Tour of Flanders.
Well, look at this. Pozzato is having a little dig here, just stamping on those pedals, see if he can stretch it away. That would be a big turn-up if he were to win for Italy.
Straight across the gap is Sylvain Chavanel playing the job of policeman for Team Quick-Step. He's playing the waiting game here this afternoon for Quick-Step. He's almost a little bit of a joker in the pack for them, as he realizes it's his job to match all of these moves that might go clear, because if he misses a move, you can be absolutely certain Wilfred Peters, the team manager from that squad, will be rather annoyed tonight.
Well, Chavanel's crossed the gap to Pozzato. Now, yes, he's never won. I don't think he's ever finished in the first 6 in the Tour of Flanders, but he has ridden well at this time of the year in Belgium. Last year he was 2nd overall in the Depana race, and that in itself is literally just down the road, and they use many roads similar to this event. He also finished 4th in the Grand Prix E3, which we had last weekend in 2007. So he knows he can do it, and he certainly looks a bit sharp right now. He wanted Chavanel to come through and help out. Now, counter-attacks coming here from the field here.
It's amazing to see it's the same 2 guys every time. Pippo Pozzato on the front here for Katusha, and behind him there is Tom Bonen. Bonen wants to get across this gap.
Well, they know each other's ability, and we also know that they are both on terrific form. And they're in tandem here. Two ex-rivals, two ex-teammates, and going for it again to try and crack this field. And each time they go on these climbs, there's very few can go with them.
Well, Pozzato looked absolutely fantastic. Stijn Devolder struggling a fraction there to try and get into contact because he wants to stay up alongside Tom Bonen to try and get across that gap. And the acceleration here, they've opened up a gap, Phil, over the front end of the main field. And if Stijn Devolder can make the junction, they've got a very good chance here, because just keep glancing to the clock at the top of the screen there. It's down to 50 seconds from 2 minutes.
Just how quick does it collapse once these boys turn on the gas again? All the efforts of Pozzato, that one, who's had a couple of wins already in the last couple of weeks. Now a quick descent here as they swing off these little hills onto good road again. Leif Haussler, as Stijn Devolder rather, has crossed the gap. Two more riders, one might have been Fletcher there trying to get across, but these are not far enough behind. They should hook up again.
Crazy race, it's going away, it's coming back together again. Bonen he's dying to get the gap here. Stijn Devolder looking across at him and saying, shall we go? Do we need to go for it now, as everybody's scrambling?
Looking over his shoulder, see what damage he's done. We are looking at three survivors at the front here, Chavanel, Host and Quinziato. The race is beginning to take shape.
Well, they're all looking over their shoulders, and you can see that's the second part of the split there. That's Dan Lloyd in the black for Cervelo Test Team. He wants to know what's happening in a bike race like this, because at 10 seconds behind the leaders, they know that not far away from them, they could very shortly be seeing the shape of big Tom Bonen.
Well, Haussler still looks pretty cool here, and I have to say the same for Chavanel as well. He will know that the chase is on behind. He's not going to push home this advantage. Not seeing Chavanel in the blue, and also Leif Haussler 3 times second. It's 8.1% average gradient, but wait till you just look above these three riders. The remnants of the breakaway, followed by Tom Bonen, and then the chase is right on the back of them.
Well, this is still Frédéric Guédon looking over his shoulder, and he knows what is coming up behind him. It is a steam train, an engine at full power, and it's called Tom Bonen and Stijn Devolder. There they are over on the left-hand side, straight to the front, taking up the pacemaking. Caught in the quick-step sandwich, as you might say, Phil, is Filippo Pozzato, who's quite happy to be in this position.
Well, there's only really 3 survivors now, Quinziato, Haussler, and indeed Chavanel. They are the leaders on the Valkenberg, and the train is coming, and a tremendous...
I think the boss is on his way.
Well, I tell you what, Paul, if Pozzato is riding like this, he's looking himself as though he could well take advantage of all the infighting that's going on today. He's poised in a perfect position to win this now.
He certainly is. Greg van Avermaet in second position at the front end of the main field here is trying to control affairs as Nick Noyens now for Rabobank tries to go clear. He realizes the race is starting to form.
Noyens, the runner-up to Devolder 1 year ago, and is looking to play another card for Rabobank here now. 37 kilometres from the finishing line, and the man in silver medal position last year suddenly finding his legs.
Well, they realise how dangerous
the riders don't know who to chase, who's going to succeed, how much energy can I afford to throw away.
Sylvain Chavanel in the blue shorts looking over his shoulder. Come on, Tomica, where are you? I know you want to win this bike race, but you can't be too far behind us. These now are the chasers. Chavanel looking over his shoulder to see that he's got 2 teammates coming along in this group. Stijn Devolder and Tom Bonen, joined by Bandiera from Lampre, who's hanging on there, and of course stuck in 3rd position is Filippo Pozzato, who I have to say, Phil, is looking extremely dangerous to Tom Bonen if Bonen wants to win this bike race.
Emerging, and by the way, if Tom Bonen wins today, it'll be his 100th victory as a professional since he turned pro back in 2002. And so everything to play for, as they say in football today, for Tom Bonen. And Devolder, Bonen, Chavanel, Haussler, the big hitters have suddenly pierced the air. They're now blazing a trail towards the finish in Meerbeke, but I don't think we've seen the rest of the strengthening of this breakaway yet.
Well, the fact is now Quick-Step are playing their cards, the cards that they've got. We talked before the race, Phil, of 3 favourites on Team Quick-Step: Devolder, Bonen and Chavanel. They're all in this group. They have to give it all now. They've got their cards in their hand. They're going to play them onto the table, and they've got to give it everything now, because if it comes back together once more, they've used a lot of firepower.
Well, it is now becoming a very select group, and I'm very sad to say that we haven't got George Hincapie up here, and this could well be the winning move now. Who is there left to chase? And after all their great bike riding today, Cervelo haven't come up when it matters most at the moment.
Well, as you say, at the moment, 36 kilometers to go. Everything is still to play for. There are two chasers here trying to get themselves across the gap. I think one of those, well, this is in fact a group of riders that are splitting off the back end of the main field at 30 seconds.
Well, there's the gap, 33 seconds they're trying to reach. As I say, it's not over yet here. This is Tom Bonen. There's two guys trying to get off the front here now. Tom's only just come. He's not recovered from that chase yet.
Well, they're playing a very dangerous move here because Pozzato, I think, has clipped himself off the front end of the main field, and they've split up once again, which is a bit of a shame after that big job of work they did. Covered by Sylvain Chavanel, still working for the team.
He's riding unbelievable since he come across to Quick Step this year. He's having a terrific season already. Number 2. He has worn number 1 as a previous winner on 2 occasions of this race. But just who is going to win this year's Ronde van Vlaanderen? Because at 35 kilometers to go, even if you're a gambling man, it's still anybody's guess.
It's still anybody's guess, that's for certain. Now Tom Bonen is starting to put the pressure onto Filippo Pozzato. I think they've seen how strong the Italian is, and they want him and Leif Haussler to do a little bit of work to pull themselves back into this event.
Bandiera, the Lamprey rider, must feel pretty lonely out there. He's 3 up from our picture at the moment with the pink shorts on. Haussler having a good look here at Stijn Devolder, last year's winner, wearing number 1.
This really is quite an interesting tactic now, because all of a sudden Team Quickstep had 3 men in the leading group, and that was all blown away by the move here by Pozzato. Chavanel has got the orders. Don't work with the breakaway. Wait for Bonen to come back. But Bonen's in a bit of a quandary. What do I do with Pozzato? Because Pozzato is very strong and very dangerous.
And he hasn't shown any signs of cracking. He might now try to let this one run and just give him his chance. We'll see. There's Guédon, who's also come back into the action. And surprisingly, too, so has Alexander Kuzinski, number 125.
Kuzinski's doing a great ride. He's the survivor of the early morning breakaway. He's been in different. Chavanel has done everything to team orders here this afternoon, and I think that's a very sensible move by the team management to say, right, we're having a bit of a problem here with Bonen and Pozzato. You take responsibility, but make sure you win.
Well, it has turned out to be a beautiful day now in Belgium, as you can see from the sun here. We are looking at the 2 leaders at 26 kilometers to go. There's the split. They've got 18 seconds on over the Tom Bonen, George Hincapie group. We think George is there. We haven't seen him for a while. And again, they split up on a peloton by just a few seconds. Nobody can make up. There's one chaser just on the Top Sport Vlaanderen team at 20 seconds. The Bonen peloton is at 33.
Yes, that's Preben van Haken from Top Sport Vlaanderen. And this is the start now of the 14th climb of the day, the Eikenmolen. An average gradient of 6%, a maximum gradient of 13%. And the crowd here pretty much noticeable by their absence. I think they've all gone 15 kilometers down the road, Phil, to the Muur de Gramont.
Yeah, just remind me what the 15th climb is, Paul. It always sends shivers down the spine.
The 15th climb of the day is the Muur de Gramont, or the Wall van Geraardsbergen.
Ah, lovely. I've actually ridden up that. Well, I think I rode it, but I can't remember. It was so hard. Well, we're looking there at the peloton reforming now. It's going to be showdown in Geraardsbergen. It's got to be showdown in Geraardsbergen. This race too has often been won there. But we've got a counter-attack going here.
Devolder.
Again, and now is the man that was the winner last year and seems all day to have been helping Tom Bonen, giving his head to try for himself.
Well, Quickstep certainly, I think, have thrown down the gauntlet here. They know the most dangerous man in this group and in this field, I think, is Filippo Pozzato.
That's Pozzato there, isn't it?
Well, it's a rider from Katusha coming across. I'm not sure whether it was Pozzato, because I'm certain that Pozzato will be completely covered now by Tom Bonen.
Unless Tom Bonen suddenly hit the wall, which is all possible. We tend to forget these guys are human, you know, and just occasionally they get tired.
Well, there's Bonen sitting at the back of the group wearing number 2, so it obviously wasn't Bonen's chance to go out of the front of this group. That's a very large group. I'm sure Bonen feeling a little bit depressed because he's got the legs here this afternoon, but he just has never really
the legs. I
been
wonder
able
if
to.
He's gone into a bad patch.
Quite possibly.
And that's why they've switched their tactics.
And Devolder now has seen that as his opportunity to move up into the role of team captain as well.
Well, that's the benefit of having a great team, and that's what Quick-Step is. I mean, the Belgian papers said all week, Quick-Step will win the race. The question is, with which rider? So they can't afford to lose it because they'll be ripped in the papers tomorrow.
Well, especially if this man can ride across the gap. He's come halfway across the gap to Preben van Hake of Team Topsport Vlaanderen. Comes by him. He may well slow down to give him a little bit of a chance to get into the slipstream.
Yeah, looks like it.
And he's got himself 20 seconds to find now to rejoin the leaders. And again, the race radios from Manuel about to be joined by his teammate, and that is going to change the whole flavour of the breakaway for Team Quick-Step.
Well, that is incredible that Stijn Devolder, last year's winner, has worked all day for Tom Bonen and now appears to have been given his head, reverse the tactics and go and win for yourself. Now 2 Quick-Step versus the other 2, but for the moment they need to stay friends.
Straight to the front, Stijn Devolder there with Van Hake in second position. Quinziata now thinking, I'm in a bit of a problem here because I've got 2 men that I've got to keep a very close eye on. I still think that Chavanel is in one of the best days that I've seen him race in many, many seasons.
Well, what about the top sport rider, Preben van Hake? He's really got himself into a situation here which could result in...
Number 6 there, like Matteo Pozzato, in at the chance of a kill in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, because he is a man who for many, many kilometres rides on the front for Tom Bonen.
He's riding on the back right now. He's got control of the ticket collector's box at the back of this group. He's not for the year, and they'll still be talking about him next December.
There's the town of Geraardsbergen.
Now we're waiting. Geraardsbergen in Geraardsbergen. This, as we go now, we go down sort of the main streets. There'll be little assistance from Rabobank, and really we should see some Team Columbia riders there as well. We're looking at the 4 leaders now as they swing onto the cobblestones of the wall of Geraardsbergen. They've got just 48 seconds advantage over 4 chases and 61 seconds over a huge peloton.
Well, Chavanel there sitting at the backfill in 4th position, must be wondering whether he's got the legs to get away from this leading group. He's a Frenchman on a Belgian team here this afternoon, and I have to say he's ridden to absolute and utter perfection, coming around the outside of Quinziato, coming up to the wheel of Van Hake, the man in the white jersey in second place for the small Belgian team, Topsport Vlaanderen, and he's going to set the tempo for his teammate Stijn Devolder. This, as you said, Phil, is the mecca of Flanders for the Ronde van Vlaanderen. The 4-man chase group has now been picked up by the main field.
They have indeed, because that's even off there, so they've all been caught. It's 4 against the rest now as the counter-attacks are coming again, and they're going to have to come now. There's going to have to be progress. Note the time, 48 seconds, down to 47 already as those 4 leaders are halfway up the climb. This looks like Fletcher to me.
Well, there's a big battle. In fact, it looks like Matti Heyman, I think, who's got himself a bit ripped up there, Phil.
Could
be,
he's
come to the front at this part of the climb, but... lose if they play that game.
Well, Tom Bonen is happy to lose, providing one of his team wins, and he's got the 2 riders capable of it. Last year's winner, who moved over to this team this year, is right on the front.
Nee. Wie is daar? Fletcher alweer? Huh? Of dingen? Rabo-renner. Nee, het is geen Maaskant. Fletcher.
Open a gap. What a result that would be for Australia if they could land the big one.
Here's the move. Stijn Devolder set up there by Sylvain Chavanel. He's trying to get himself away from Quinziato. Quinziato was waiting for that move to come, and again moving into second position in the defensive role for Quick-Step is Sylvain Chavanel.
Well, Quinziato, no surprise to me, looks very, very strong here as they go up towards the chapel. We're getting to the area where we've seen lesser men walk on this climb, and Devolder knows it. Quinziato's cracked a little bit as Devolder now is turning it on in style, proudly wearing number 1 as last year's winner. We've seen him destroy himself all day for Tom Bonen, and he's had to lay it down for himself today on the wall. And I think he just cracked Quinziato. Tom Bonen now is going to have to block at the back. The 6th place in the Grand Prix E3, and that was last week, and now Devolder is ready.
There's only one climb left in front of him as well, Phil, and that is the climb of the Bosberg, the final climb of the Ronde van Vlaanderen here this afternoon. Quinziato trying to encourage Chavanel to work, and all he can say is, excusez-moi, mais je ne peux pas. I cannot ride with you because that's my teammate in front. So sorry, mate, that is the law of the jungle at 15 kilometres to go.
And there is the empty road of Flanders lying ahead of a rider who's seen all this before now, as he hasn't won many races in his life. He turned pro in 2002. He's had 17 victories, Stijn Devolder, but this would match up with the other one. So as we look now here at Stijn Devolder, the man who was the big favourite, Tom Bonen, is now having to be the faithful teammate back in the pack at around about 15 seconds or so, a bit more than that. And George Hincapie, although we believe he's in that chase group, sadly to say, we haven't seen anything of him in this closing stage of the race. These 3 riders are 15 seconds back. The peloton was still waiting for the time gap.
Well, the rider there from Silence Lotto is Philippe Gilbert. Now, this is the next group on the road, and I'll tell you what, this man, Preben van Hakke, has pulled himself back into this bike race.
He's just gone off, taken off. We better start looking up this guy's name, because clearly he's having a big day in Belgium today. Is Preben van Hakke. Is the Top Sport Vlaanderen rider, which is a small continental team, and he's up against the big teams today. He wasn't marked, of course, but he's got the legs, and that's all that counts.
Well, a little word there from Philippe Gilbert from Silence Lotto to Tom Bonen. Come on, Tom, do you want to work with us? And a quite prompt reply was, no, it is Gilbert.
It is Gilbert?
Yeah.
Well, he's the rider who said this race wasn't for him.
Well, he's a top quality bike rider, and he wanted to come and ride this race, and a man of his level, you don't come and ride a bike race like this unless you're really going to have a good crack at it.
Well, we'll see what happens now, because these boys are getting shades of desperation, I think, now. This is Nick Nguyen, second last year, who's now moved to the back of that group, while at the front is the man he finished second to last year, blazing his own private road now towards the finish in Meerbeke.
Kom!
Nee meer.
Kom! Kom!
The time trial of his life. This is the last stepping stone to victory. We are watching Stijn Devolder now start the slopes of the Bosberg. Is he going to be the big man now that will take it through to the finish and win? He's opened the gap. 29 seconds. Chavanel getting advice from the team car. 61 seconds to the main chase group.
Well, Wilfred Peters in the team car there saying, good job, just stay there and hang loose because we've got this one in the bag. This does not look like a man who is weakening to me, Phil. He is pounding that machine of his. He's eating up the cobbles of the Bosberg. When he gets to the summit, he has a mere 11.8 kilometres to go, but he's still got to keep the pressure on because the gaps are still not that big.
Hill number 16, the end of a tough day in the saddle. It started at 9:45 local time. It's now heading up to 4 o'clock. And this man has been in our pictures ever since we went into the heart of Flanders on these bergs. And now he must be riding on adrenaline. He's got to be absolutely shattered. But he'll respond to these crowds who will cheer him and drag him to victory if that's what it's going to be. I don't think there's any fear from the three chase. I don't think they're capable. But what will come from behind?
Well, there's a reaction coming behind, and I think it was Juan Antonio Fletcher who'd slipped away from the group. It looks so very close, doesn't it? But
yeah.
It's 36 seconds. The camera, once again, slightly foreshortening it. But there's an anchor, there's a dead weight on the back of that chasing group, and it's called Sylvain Chavanel. He has to sit there. I'm amazed and impressed with Sylvain Chavanel. Last year with Cofidis. He suddenly seemed to mature, and then he decided he wanted to go to a bigger team, a stronger team, a more solid team for the one-day classics. And he's proving today that he made the right choice.
Well, what a huge...
Gaat daar. Hey, Stijn, go on!
And right now, there's the time board. If he can wipe the sweat out of his eyes, he might have read it. We didn't, but we can see easily. It's 38 seconds on that chase group of 2. Because the third one ain't chasing.
Well, just looking at his pedaling style, it was a pedaling style of a man who's got lots of energy still in his legs. Bonin in second position is playing the defensive. That is Juan Antonio Fletcher in the orange, just getting himself to the top of the Bosberg, and still locked onto the wheel of Tom Bonin is Filippo Pozzato. Well, he hasn't moved from there all day.
One gets the feeling these are the riders in their death throes here on the Bosberg. It's their last chance to break it up. They're very, very tired. It's a tenacious peloton that's dragged itself back in over every climb, and the places could make for some surprise.
Zo wel niet. Daar is mee.
Rabobank. Weer eruit, jongen. Fletcher.
Hey, Fletcher. Goed. Pozzato. Haussler. Dat, hè?
They were able to turn around the tactics and throw a couple of other buns in the oven for these guys. Now this man, I reckon, has pretty much got the race sewn up. The only thing I think that can rob him of a victory here this afternoon is a mechanical incident.
Yes, well, Pozzato fell into the Venus flytrap, didn't he, really? Because you can't take on a team and just follow one rider. You've got to surprise that team. and he seemed to be, his only tactic was to follow Tom Bonen, and Tom Bonen was to follow him. So they wrote themselves out of this particular script today, but it's working out well for Quick-Step at the moment, with the usual flotilla of motorbikes as we enter inside 10 kilometres from the finish. Just one lone figure, a Belgian cyclist, a former champion of this country, heading for the 66th win in the Ronde van Vlaanderen. He's just 9 kilometres from glory.
That is a big gap, a 51-second gap, and still Quinziato goes to the front, tries to keep the pressure on, but now knowing that he's riding to try and get a chance at second place in the Ronde van Vlaanderen here this afternoon. Sylvain Chavanel.
He crossed on the Eikemolen eventually to the leaders, and on the wall he destroyed them. And now he's riding proudly towards the end. Well, the newspapers may have got it right this time. A Quick-Step rider is going to win.
Well, this was the team to beat. We said at the start of the day it was the team to beat, with 3 very strong hands in the squad: Devolder, Tom Bonen and Sylvain.
Leuk.
Out of the saddle to accelerate, keep the pace nice and high.
Well, this is the chase group here, and splitting them is Chavanel. Now he's going through now, and I'm not surprised, because I think Peters in the car there has taken the theory now. They can't catch the leader, so try and preserve this for the race for second place. They could get a 1-2.
Absolutely, and that's what they're going to look for, as they can see now that Sylvain Chavanel knows that the group behind is around about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Manager up alongside him. This man, a former champion of Belgium in the road race and the individual time trial, will throw all of that to one side here this afternoon, because he's looking to join a very select bunch of riders who've won this bike race multiple times, because he was hoping Tom Bonen was going to be a 3-time winner here this afternoon, but he now is staring down the barrel of becoming a 2-time winner.
And the memory goes Devolder, who's unselfishly ridden for his team all day, is now about to run out the winner of the Tour of Flanders.
And funnily enough, it's a similar scenario to how he rode his race last season. Last year, he was looking to try and work for his team leader, Tom Bonen. Bonen gave him the ticket to go out of the peloton to try and get the glory for the team. It was all a question of Bonen being too much watched by all the other riders in the bike race.
There's a message coming in there from Wilfred Peters. I don't think...
Left-hand turn.
We are looking again at the lonely figure of Stijn Devolder now. Our screen saying 6 kilometres, but he has just passed the 5 kilometres to go as he swings now towards the town of Meerbeke and the big finish. A case of déjà vu, because the gap is just on 1 minute, and it's getting to be in the realms of impossibility now, and it's gone to 1 minute. Devolder is going to win this race for a second year.
Well, the last little false drag as he goes through Dende Wingdeke, because the next climb and the next town sign that he will see will be Meerbeke. This is really going to hurt his legs, but when you're in a position like this and you know that you're going to win the bike race, the pain just goes back into the distance for a short while. It'll still be there later on in the evening. It'll still be...
Never won a race as a professional, and he's not going to win today, but to finish even 4th in the Tour of Flanders is a huge result and could lead to greater things, of course. Wilfred Peters now saying, look, you've got it, just keep going, because there's nothing else you can do now. You're not allowed to touch your riders, feed your riders, you can just shout at them.
I think he probably said 1 kilometre to go and alles gedaan. Everything's over, because you've got this one pretty much locked up in the bag, my dear boy. All you've got to do now is make the right-hand turn once you leave this town, and then it's all downhill into Meerbeke and a slight climb in the last 400 metres.
And he's still going out. It's now 1 minute 11 seconds, and there's the peloton, so the race for second place is wide open now. The sprinters will have their moment here as Pozzato is on the sharp end, followed here by Sylvain Chavanel, who's had a brilliant day out, but it may now...
Going to survive, but I think it's pretty much over. There's a big gap there of open road as they try to keep it nice and clean. You can't see the main field coming over just yet, but they're not too far away.
There they are. They can see the winner of the Tour of Flanders, but they can't catch him today. That gap represents 69 seconds now. I think Preben there has had just about enough. That was a huge turn he just did to try and hold them off, but now he's gasping. Heading down to familiar roads here, not more.
There's a little question of pride, I have to say, for Team Quickstep, with the red flag now shining for this man, Stijn Devolder. It's the first time Philly started to look a little bit relaxed.
He's just looking at Wilfred Peters there. Once you're under 1 kilometre to go, nobody bridges a minute's gap. And now it's a pleasurable ride to the finish of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. 260 kilometres under pressure. You're entitled to the last kilometre to have fun.
Well, he can enjoy this. That last time he wasn't too far off the front end of the chasing group of riders. This time he knows he can really enjoy the last 500 metres. And the crowd here, I have to say, almost half of Flanders has turned out to see this bike race. And with a Belgian rider winning it, Phil, they will go ballistic.
There's the turn. In the distance is the banner. It's slightly uphill, would you believe? It's a difficult sprint to judge. We'll see that in a moment, because that will be the case for second place. But the lines, flags are waving here in Flanders at 300 metres to go. This rider wins for a second year. You'd have got tremendous odds on him doing it. Even with 50 kilometres to go, you'd have got good odds. But he proved to have the strength. In just over 6 hours today, Stijn Devolder goes back-to-back in the Ronde van Vlaanderen. 2 fingers in the air to a massive crowd. And I have to say, this was the way to win. On your own, after proving you're the best man in the race.
Yeah, brilliant ride by Stijn Devolder, and just listen to the crowd. They are going crazy about the performance of their man, their champion of 2 years ago, the winner of last year, and what a great way to win. And here we've still got Heinrich Haussler trying to get himself second place.
Well, I can see all the people leaping up in Inverell, Australia now, because Heinrich has somehow got him just off the front of the group here. Now, he is a good sprinter, but he's not left anything to the chance of the sprint here. Now, our cameras we don't have any control of have gone to the melee over the finishing line here with Stijn Devolder. The leaders are coming up the straight. They're about 400 metres from the line. There they are. And Haussler is still holding position. He's got an outside chance here. The sprint is about to start, and hush off.
Oh my God! Come on, man!
Decision to get away. He crosses the line in second place. So the big favourite this morning among some people has come good with a second place finish, and the third place finish there went to Philippe Gilbert. Well, there's a good sprint for you. The man that said this course didn't suit him.
Well, Gilbert was looking to put a fine performance in there. Sylvain Chavanel just coming across the...
At the finish line. Help him. Oh my God, help him.
Back and his numbers flapping. I'm wondering if he was involved in that crash. He's okay, but he's just come in.
Well, Hincapie coming up to the line, but this is the man who has got the glory on the day, and what a phenomenal performance. Laid it down, as so very often is the case, on the slopes of the Muur de Gramont.
Well, there is...
Stijn, just 2 quick questions in English. It seemed as if you did a lot of work for Tom Boonen, but at the end of the race, you were given your freedom to get a second victory.
Yeah, I did a lot of work again for Tom after Berendries to close the gap on the leaders, and it cost me a lot of power there. But I recovered a little bit after Ten Bosse, and then I went on Eikenmolen alone to the 2 leaders, and then I had enough energy to go again on the Muur.
With 1 minute's advantage, was that a much sweeter victory than the victory of last year?
It's a little bit more comfortable if you have 1 minute or 15 seconds.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay.